massive 3-year-long police operation has delivered a serious blow to the Comanchero gang's network across New Zealand. Over 40 members and associates are now facing criminal charges. In one decisive action, New Zealand police arrested the last remaining senior Comanchero boss. This man is accused of trafficking hundreds of kilograms of methamphetamine and cocaine. Now behind bars, he faces serious charges, part of a broader operation that has led to nearly 140 charges and has shaken the gang's criminal empire to its foundation. But the key question now is, what happens to the underworld when the leadership collapses? Background: origins of the Comanchero gang. The Comanchero Motorcycle Club did not originate in New Zealand. It was founded in Sydney, Australia in 1966 as one of many outlaw motorcycle groups. By the 1980s, it had developed a reputation for violence and was deeply involved in turf wars, particularly with rival gangs such as the Bandidos. One of the most notorious moments in its history, the Milpera massacre, left 7 people dead, including a 14-year-old girl. That incident solidified their image as ruthless and fearless, committed to organized crime. Over time, the gang expanded rapidly, first throughout Australia, then into parts of Southeast Asia. The most aggressive phase of their expansion began around 2016 when they established a presence in New Zealand. They did not arrive quietly, they came to dominate. Within a few short years, the New Zealand chapter evolved into a major criminal operation, marked by luxury cars, high-end properties, and a reputation for violence. But this wasn't merely street-level crime. Authorities allege the gang was involved in importing meth and cocaine, laundering millions of dollars, and training members in military-style tactics. Police described the organization as a fully developed criminal enterprise. 3 years of surveillance and investigation. It took law enforcement 3 years of covert surveillance to map out the gang's internal structure. Investigators followed the money trails, tracked drug shipments, observed meetings, and gradually built a case strong enough to target the gang's leadership. The final arrest occurred just weeks ago in Auckland, linked to a high-profile case, the Port of Tauranga heist in December 2024. Port of Tauranga heist, New Zealand's largest meth bust. In early December 2024, a dramatic daylight break-in took place at the Port of Tauranga, New Zealand's busiest port. 2 men broke into a secured shipping container using tools and quickly loaded 5 suitcases into a vehicle. Inside were 200 kilograms of methamphetamine, the largest meth seizure in New Zealand's history. Unbeknownst to the criminals, customs officials had already flagged the container during routine X-ray screening. Police were monitoring the container when the heist took place. As the suspects fled the scene, law enforcement deployed road spikes, stopping their vehicle on a nearby toll road. The men attempted to flee on foot but were apprehended within minutes. Inside the suitcases, investigators found not only drugs but also gloves and angle grinders, tools used to break into the container. This was no random theft. It was a highly coordinated operation. The biggest concern: how did they know which container to target? Authorities suspect an insider helped coordinate the heist, pointing to possible corruption or data breaches within the port system. Over the following days, 2 more suspects were arrested in related raids. In total, 4 men were charged with drug importation, burglary, and possession of tools used for criminal activity. The case was part of a joint operation between New Zealand police and customs. It underscored a broader issue. Organized criminal networks are exploiting weaknesses in port security. Though ports have cameras and fences, syndicates often rely on corrupt insiders or gaps in communication to bypass detection. The 200 kilograms of meth, worth approximately $75 million, equated to 10 million individual doses. The potential social harm was estimated at over $200 million. Experts say this was more than just a record drug bust. It was a warning sign. How many other containers might have passed through unnoticed? The 4 operations, unraveling a criminal empire. From 2021 to late 2024, police launched a multi-phase strategy to dismantle the Comanchero gang's influence in New Zealand. The investigation included 4 major operations: Scuba, Avon, Embargo, and Bridle, each targeting different elements of the organization. Operation Scuba. This initial phase focused on the gang's financial network. Authorities uncovered money laundering schemes used to funnel drug profits into real estate, vehicles, and other assets. Over $5.8 million in assets were frozen, including luxury properties, a late-model Range Rover, and 2 Harley-Davidsons. More than 10 individuals were charged. Operation Avon. This phase targeted gang chapters directly. Police raided properties across Christchurch, Dunedin, and Auckland, arresting every patched member of the Christchurch chapter. They disrupted regular drug and cash routes, seized methamphetamine, firearms, gang patches, and nearly $2 million in restrained assets. Operation Embargo. Investigators discovered an internal taxation system within the gang, requiring members to pay thousands of dollars per kilogram of drug sales. These funds reportedly went toward purchasing weapons, property, and even military-style training. Authorities suspect a foreign trainer was hired to instruct around 15 members. Operation Bridle. The final phase linked directly to the December 2024 Meth heist at the port of Tauranga. It connected the port crime to senior Comanchero leadership, implicating them in transnational drug trafficking. This operation led to 137 charges being laid across a wide range of members, from high-ranking officers to new recruits, effectively dismantling the gang's administrative structure. The final arrest. National Vice President captured. On April 9, 2025, in the quiet suburb of Howick, Auckland, police arrested the Comanchero gang's national vice president, the final senior member not yet in custody. The 36-year-old is accused of organizing the meth importation via Tauranga and coordinating a separate cocaine shipment earlier that year. He faces serious charges: importing methamphetamine, attempting to supply cocaine, and participating in an organized criminal group. Authorities say this arrest represents a turning point. With all senior leadership now facing charges, the gang's strategic and logistical operations are believed to be significantly disrupted. Global reach of the Comanchero network. This wasn't just a domestic operation. Authorities confirmed that the Comanchero gang's leadership coordinated with international suppliers and syndicates. The gang's vice president is alleged to have worked closely with contacts in South America, Southeast Asia, and Australia. Drugs were shipped into New Zealand in containers loaded with legitimate goods. Communications were encrypted. Every step from shipment to arrival was meticulously planned. This level of coordination resembles a corporate supply chain, highlighting how far organized crime has evolved. The arrest of the vice president marked the end of a major enforcement campaign, but authorities say the work isn't over. The focus now shifts to securing ports against insider threats, closing off smuggling routes, preventing the reformation of gang structures. New Zealand remains a high-value target for global drug traffickers. With a relatively small population and high street prices, the market is lucrative. The lessons from this 3-year investigation are clear. Modern organized crime is transnational, high-tech, and deeply embedded in legitimate infrastructure. This wasn't just a story about one gang. It revealed a sophisticated global criminal network operating in plain sight. This is what law enforcement had been monitoring for years. To truly understand the scale of the operation, one must look at what came before. Several years ago, a major international sting operation shook the foundations of global organized crime. In a coordinated effort, law enforcement agencies across the world deployed a fake encrypted messaging app which was unknowingly used by criminals in dozens of countries. Through this platform, they openly discussed drug shipments, arms deals, and even assassination plots. Over time, thousands of these messages were logged and analyzed. The operation led to hundreds of arrests globally and exposed the inner workings of numerous criminal groups, including the Comanchero gang. A senior Comanchero figure was among those implicated. His encrypted communications revealed details about drug movements, cash transfers, and other high-level activities. Subsequent raids on his properties uncovered methamphetamine, illegal firearms, and large sums of cash, clear evidence of the gang's deep involvement in international trafficking networks. The recent arrest in Auckland is a continuation of that same thread. Authorities believe the individual was responsible for a major methamphetamine shipment and had been involved in an attempted cocaine import. But this is not just about drugs. What distinguishes this case is the structure and sophistication involved. This was not street-level crime. It was logistics on an international scale, contacts in foreign ports, coordination with shipping companies, insider knowledge about container schedules. The individual arrested did not operate alone. He functioned as a key intermediary, receiving intelligence, issuing instructions, and moving vast quantities of drugs without ever handling them personally. This reflects the face of modern organized crime, professional, strategic, and often hidden in plain sight. What makes modern criminal networks even more dangerous is their use of advanced technology. Encrypted phones, self-deleting messages, and disposable devices allow gangs to communicate quickly, securely, and globally, helping them stay one step ahead of law enforcement. However, recent operations have demonstrated that even encrypted platforms can be breached, and when they are, entire criminal networks can collapse overnight. The Comanchero gang's reach extends far beyond New Zealand. In Australia, they have been linked to large-scale imports of cocaine and heroin. Some members were caught attempting to move multi-ton shipments, while others operated seemingly legitimate businesses, motorcycle shops, gyms, and financial services used to launder criminal proceeds. In Southeast Asia, they've reportedly attempted to build alliances with local drug traffickers to expand their influence. So this is not just the arrest of one gang member in Auckland. It's a piece of a much larger global puzzle. Each arrest reveals more of how today's criminal organizations use modern tools to commit age-old crimes. Drug trafficking, money laundering, bribery, all executed at a transnational scale. The recent arrest signals that law enforcement is closing the gap. With enhanced international collaboration, better intelligence sharing, and more advanced investigative tools, agencies are now pushing back. The Comanchero gang, once considered nearly untouchable in several regions, now finds its empire rapidly deteriorating, one arrest at a time. With nearly all senior Comanchero leaders now facing charges, one thing is clear. Their hold over New Zealand's criminal underworld has significantly weakened. For years, the gang operated a powerful, well-organized network, but law enforcement has struck directly at its core, its leadership, financial systems, training structures, and distribution networks. The result? The gang's capacity to coordinate major criminal operations has been severely restricted. The next challenge is equally critical. Who fills the void? When a dominant gang collapses, others often attempt to take its place. Speculation points to groups like the mongrel mob or filthy few, potentially seeking to expand. But the landscape has changed. Today's law enforcement is more vigilant and proactive than ever. Agencies are closely monitoring developments determined to prevent a violent power struggle. The police message is clear. Any attempt to rebuild will be met with swift, decisive action. The consequences of this crackdown reach far beyond organized crime. A disrupted drug supply chain means fewer shipments on the streets, less money flowing into illicit markets, and reduced access to drugs, particularly methamphetamine. Communities, schools, and families that have long suffered under the weight of addiction may finally experience some relief. Still, vulnerabilities remain, especially at New Zealand's ports. Despite recent successes, criminal organizers have repeatedly shown they understand the system's weak points. Securing cargo, gaining insider access, and exploiting lapses in oversight are common tactics. Authorities now recognize the urgent need for upgraded scanning technologies, more transparency in port operations, stronger safeguards against corruption. A single compromised employee, whether a baggage handler or a customs official, can undermine entire systems. Organized crime doesn't need to force its way in if it can rely on someone with legitimate access. New Zealand has long taken pride in its institutional integrity, but recent incidents have highlighted the vulnerabilities within infrastructure zones, such as ports, customs, and borders. That's why multi-agency cooperation is now essential. Police, customs, border protection, intelligence services, and private operators must work in close alignment. Sharing intelligence, training personnel, and maintaining 24/7 oversight are now national priorities. So what does this all mean for the Comanchero gang? Their leadership is fragmented. Their ability to coordinate large-scale drug imports has collapsed. But the threat is not over. It has merely shifted. Organized crime adapts. It finds new routes, new methods, and new allies. Smaller shipments, different ports, and more discreet operations may become the norm. But the recent takedown has shown that disruption is possible and that it can be sustained through vigilance, adaptability, and strategic enforcement. This operation matters. The dismantling of the Comancheros sends a strong message. Even the most entrenched criminal groups can be broken apart through long-term investigations, interagency coordination, and tactical precision. The Comancheros may be down, but not necessarily out. The landscape has changed. The next phase of enforcement will be just as critical as the last. The key question now is not if organized crime will adapt, but how prepared authorities are to stop it when it does. After 3 years of relentless investigation, surveillance, and coordinated enforcement, the Comanchero Motorcycle Club has been stripped of its leadership in New Zealand. A major methamphetamine shipment was intercepted. Over 130 charges have been filed. And the last senior member, once considered untouchable, is now behind bars. What began as a quiet inquiry into suspicious cash flows and encrypted messages grew into one of the most impactful anti-gang operations in the country's history. Every piece of evidence, drug seizures, financial raids, port surveillance, digital tracking, played a part in a sweeping final act. Authorities didn't just go after foot soldiers. They targeted strategists, the individuals who made the deals, moved the money, and recruited personnel like a corporate operation. And in the end, they succeeded. This level of success is rare. It required patience, cooperation across agencies, and the resolve to challenge a network with global connections, vast financial resources, and a violent legacy. But the operation succeeded, and it sent shockwaves throughout the criminal world. History, however, has shown us that when one empire falls, another often tries to rise. Gangs do not simply disappear, they evolve, regroup, and exploit the spaces left behind. Law enforcement is already preparing for this next phase. With the Comancheros out of the spotlight, rivals may attempt to claim turf. recruit street-level operatives, or revive smuggling channels. But the rules have changed. Police now have a proven model for targeting and dismantling criminal networks from the top down. This wasn't just a single victory, it's a blueprint for the future of organized crime enforcement in New Zealand. The takeaway is clear. Encrypted apps can be cracked, insiders can be exposed, and even the most powerful syndicates can fall if law enforcement stays one step ahead. One gang has been dismantled, one operation has been completed, but the larger battle against organized crime is far from over. So we leave you with this question: is this the end for the Comancheros, or simply the beginning of a new chapter in outlaw biker crime? Because the reality is, criminal empires rarely vanish, they evolve, and stopping them will require the same level of strategy, innovation, and determination that brought this one down.